When you think about education, a lot of times they don't talk about what parents want and what parents need, right? And how parents are really already involved with their kids. And so you guys are wholly involved in your college education and have made choices for your children. So tell me about that. Tell me about the choices you're making for your children and why you're doing that.
I would say one of the choices I've made here recently, I have 3 daughters. They're all 9 years apart. My oldest has already graduated from high school, but I have a 14-year-old daughter who is currently at Fall Creek Valley Middle School. And just with her education, even with her being on a hybrid schedule, I've seen some of the curriculum is not really conducive to what she would face in real life. It's more centered. I found my issue with it was the fact that it was more geared towards the area that we live in. It was almost stereotypical. So I wanted something a little bit more that was going to be more educational for her, more cultural. As I am a single parent, I'm a widow, and I actually try to culture my children, take them out, see different things outside of where we live, because I want them to know there's more for them that they can have access to. So with that being said, I did apply and was able to get her approved and accepted to Cathedral High School, which has so many of those other options that I was looking for.
That's great, and obviously, so what? Just in 10 years after she's done that and had that choice, what's the trajectory of your daughter? What do you think it would have been, and what do you think it is going to be?
What it would have been had we stayed in the system is your typical, your kind of, I won't say fall by the wayside. I shouldn't say that because I'm a driver myself. So I go hard and I go passionate about things that I do, so I push that for my children also. But I see her going off to college and becoming an entrepreneur. She has a really entrepreneurial spirit. And just seeing her excel, that's what the future looks like for her.
You know what I find is interesting is that I know Cathedral's thought processes are that you've paid for Cathedral, you should not have to pay for college. So a lot of their kids get good scholarships to college.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
That's good, very
Well,
good
let's
to
talk
know.
about that. So Cathedral, you know Cathedral pretty well, right?
I do,
So
but he
tell us
didn't. He
about
didn't
it.
stay at Cathedral. He ended up at Chittard. He was at Cathedral for a year, and then he ended up. He went to Broad Ripple, and then he went to Chittard. So, and they have the same philosophy there, is that you're paying for high school, you shouldn't have to pay for college. So he's got a lot of scholarships. Very, very happy about that. But he took kind of an unconventional path by going to Broad Ripple for 1 year, but he did qualify for the voucher, and that he wouldn't have been able to go otherwise.
So he went to, you sort of worked with him to pick a number of different schools, right? So Broad Ripple, Cathedral, Chittard.
Well, he just didn't really quite do what he was supposed to do at Cathedral, and so
I'm shocked
his
the kids do
reward,
that.
his reward was to go to Broad Ripple,
Ah.
and then he appreciated what he was able to do by going to Chittard at that point.
That's
so, parents don't always know everything.
That's right.
And that's why he earned the reward of going to Broad Ripple. And then I knew something.
Then you knew something. So your son, Nick, who's just an amazing young man, right? I've gotten to know a little bit over the years. What do you think his life would be like if he wouldn't have had those options? What would be different about it?
I hate to say that and his father and I were just talking about this the other day, he's a follower. And so I think that he would have fallen in with the wrong crowd and possibly, who knows what happens. I mean, he's a young black man. And so, you don't have to look far to see what's happening to young black men who are not on the right path, or even if they are on the right path.
That's right.
So, I needed to put him in a place where he was going to follow the right people and where he was going to get the right kind of guidance. And he was not getting that, and he really understood that when he was in a public school.
Did that sink in now that he's in college?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's sunk in.
So he's going to, as a result of being able to do Chittard and now go to college, what do you think he's going to do? What's he going to do in life?
Well, currently he wants to work in fitness. Okay. So he's studying sports performance.
Okay.
He's bodybuilding and he wants to train, and so I've tried to push him in a certain direction. But again, I don't know anything, so. But he's going to do something in sports performance.
So they say that a lot, and I want to get to your story about your family, but they say a lot of that parents really don't know anything, right? You said that a couple times.
No.
Is that really true?
Oh, I know
you
plenty.
know your kid, right?
I know plenty.
Okay, you know plenty.
Absolutely.
I know plenty. He just doesn't think I know anything.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about, right? So,
Right.
so do schools, the traditional schools you were talking about, when the traditional public schools, do they value parent opinion really, in your opinion? Or do any schools value parent opinion? Do they look at parents and say, hey, I really want you here, I want to know what you think?
I will say this. When he was at Broad Ripple, I went in and I introduced myself to every teacher. I gave them a sheet of paper that had all my contact information on it, along with my expectations for them. And I told them what I expected them to provide to him. And he's not really a problem child, so I never got a call or anything, but he never came home with homework. He never, they weren't challenging him the way that I felt like he needed to be challenged. He's not a dumb kid. He's not, he had areas where he struggled, but there just wasn't that interaction. They didn't seem really to appreciate the fact that I was going to be there, and they really didn't appreciate it when I showed up.
I get that feeling. So your son, daughter?
I have 3 girls.
So you have 3 girls. So your 3 girls, what choices have you made for them and why?
So we live in Fishers, which, Hamilton Southeastern is like one of, the best school districts in the state. So when it was time to enroll our oldest in kindergarten, my husband was like, we need to give this a chance. This is supposed to be a really good public school. And I was hesitant just because I had a private school background, and so that was more my comfort zone. But I agreed to give it a chance. We had a pretty positive kindergarten experience. Her classroom was a little larger than what I would have liked. But then when we got to first grade, we got a teacher who was retiring at the end of the year. And she was completely 100% done with her job, which is fair. Like, it's fair to be done with something, but not when 7-year-olds, lie in the balance of that. So she's my super high ability, like straight A, not a problem. And she was hating school because she was reading whole chapter books during school, like in her free time, because she wasn't going to be the kid that got in trouble. So her teacher would just say, just go read, just go read. And so she would read, and she would come home and she'd be like, Mommy, please don't make me go back. Please don't make me go back. So at that point, it was time to enroll our middle child into kindergarten. And while my oldest is super, super easy in terms of academics, we knew that our middle one was not going to be that way. So I was like, I gave you my super easy to educate child, and we couldn't get the job done there. We met with the principal, and other parents, voiced concern, and it was kind of like, we know this isn't ideal, but there's really nothing we can do. Like, she's done at the end of the year, so we're just kind of ride this out, and off we go. So it was just kind of like, this isn't good enough, So our middle child, we were just in the beginning stages of getting her diagnosed then, but like, we knew it wasn't going to be a smooth path for her. And I thought, if I've given you this easy child and we had problems, I don't have a lot of confidence in giving you my middle child, who I know is going to struggle anyway. So we started looking. We knew that we wanted very, very small. We ended up at Horizon Christian School in Indianapolis. And they love my kids. And my middle child has been diagnosed with autism and ADHD and anxiety. So we have a lot of things to overcome. And we hear about, when you hear people talk about vouchers and talk about how private schools are only picking like the smart kids and the kids that are going to bring up their test scores. And I always want to say, I have 2 children, one child that would, you would pick her, and I have 2 kids that you would not pick them if that was, what the goal was. But they love my kids. All 3 of my kids are different, and they love all of them. And they've really, it's just been a super huge blessing to our family, because there's no way that we could afford private school on, I work part-time because my daughter has tons of appointments, and so it wouldn't have worked for me to work full-time. So our income is way, way less than the median income where we live. But my kids are super happy and they're thriving, and we're just really, really grateful.
So you guys have talked about, like, and my sons had the same experience, but a thriving environment, an environment where they love your child, an environment where they can fit in, right? An environment where you're exposing them to something different. I at some point, I'd love to go through that, what that meant, stereotypical curriculum, because I think I have an idea what you might be talking about, but it's probably a curriculum designed to not elevate.
Absolutely.
Right? So as you guys think about schools, what are the characteristics of a school that you want to have? What should they have? What are the characteristics of a good school in your mind? What are the characteristics?
I wanted Nicholas in a school that had high expectations.
High.
And that was really important to me, both when he was in grade school and high school. I wanted him to be held to a high standard. I didn't want him to just get by and get away with. And so when he went to St. Joan of Arc, and that was when he first went on the voucher, when he went to St. Joan of Arc, I noticed immediately when I would go to the school that there was a difference in the way that the children interacted. There was a difference in the way that they behaved in the hallways. There was a difference in the way that they interacted with me as a parent, even though they didn't know me. You know, it was not uncommon for a kindergartner to hold the door open for me. So these were the types of things. And when I went to the games, you know, if a kid said a bad word, they looked at me and like, oh no, you know. So I mean, but they were conscious of that, and so they behaved differently, and that's what I wanted. Those were the examples that I wanted for Nicholas, because I know he's a follower. So,
how about you guys? What would describe it? What are the characteristics of a school? How would you describe it? Love your kids. What else?
I want to be able to be involved, and where I felt like at our other school they were kind of like, we'll send you some things home to cut out, or we'll do whatever, but they did not want us in the classroom. And obviously this year has been different because of COVID, but I've been in all of my kids' classrooms. I have cell phone numbers for all of my teachers. Like, it's just a different kind of relationship than what we had previously.
Interesting. So go ahead. So what were you going to say?
I was going to say same thing these other mothers are looking for, that high expectation and communication. I'm a person who is really avid on, communicate with me, let me know if there's something going on with my child. Just because my 14-year-old, she's the same, you have to challenge her. So I look for a school that's going to challenge her. I look for one that's going to prepare her, not just for, just to get through high school, but what can she do with that after high school? And that's why I really enjoyed Cathedral when we took the tour. The children were saying good morning. They were holding the doors open. Drastic atmosphere change. And by the time we were leaving, my daughter was saying, well, good morning. And, she was speaking. And I could see that it really pepped her up to really be in a different environment versus what she had come from. So I think just for me, really, just communication and those high expectations is really key for me.
So as you guys think about schools, right, in general, we've had schools for a long time, and kids go to them. They get up in the morning and go to them. And that's just been the way we've done things for such a long time. And I guess I phrase it, it's been the same thing for over 250 years, right? It's like we're living in a Betamax world, right? So think big for me. Tell me as a parent, if you're going to create and build an entirely new system of education, a system of school, what would it look like? How would it operate?
I think that one thing that I would like to see would be for schools to start preparing students from when they first enter for life things. Because there's all the focus on reading and math, and all that's important. But at the same time, how do you interact with other people? How do you function in the world that we live in? And give them all the tools instead of just those basics. And then when they get to college, and they kind of get some more of those tools. And then when they get out of college, there's a little bit more. I don't think that that's setting them up for the best path to success.
I like that idea. That's great. Do you have to do that from 8 to 5 or 8 to 3?
Do I have to do it?
Does that kind of thing you just have to be done from 8 to 3? Can it be done from 10 to noon and then 5 to 7?
Why can't it be incorporated in the whole day?
What do you mean? So what do you mean by that?
As far as in the school.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they take those real life situations and incorporate those learning opportunities into everything else that they're doing in that day?
as opposed to making sure they walk down the hallway straight.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what about you guys? How would you build something totally different? Would you build a school that says, hey, we're going to, again, it starts at 7:30, goes until 3, then has aftercare, then has, sports, right? Is that the way you build?
Us parents need aftercare.
I'm not saying you don't, but do you need it at schools? Is there other ways? Is there community things? How would you think about it differently? I mean,
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of flaws in the system, but I think that there just have to be changes.
okay. How about you guys? What would it take to try something radically different?
I feel like that would be really hard for my special needs kid just because she thrives on routine and thrives on knowing what to expect. And like we're in a really good place right now. She e-learning back in the spring last year was very hard for her just because she was so used to being in her classroom of people, and our school was not set up previously to do e-learning. That was not something that we had ever done, so it was being designed on the fly. And it was just not a super positive experience. So that was one of the things when we were talking about school in the fall, none of our neighborhood kids have gone to school full time this year. My kids have been able to go full time in classrooms all year long. And that has been a super huge benefit, especially to my little two who need that interaction with people and who learn better in a corporate environment and need that routine and stability. So I don't know that I would blow it up for them. But my oldest she could do whatever. So she will be the kid that learns and you could throw her in any situation and she would be, hit the ground running, and that would work for her.
See, I've said this a couple times today, and actually I believe it. My son went to a wonderful, really good, high quality charter school in the city of Indianapolis. I could have sent him to YouTube University, he would learn just the same, right? Because do you think that's possible? Do you think that kind of thing is possible?
I think for some kids.
For some kids.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you?
I definitely say for some kids. My daughter personally, we did go virtual the fall of last year during COVID, but when the springtime came in, I found that she actually needed people. She needed that community. She needed that communication. And so now she's on a hybrid schedule and she's more focused because she does get to see her peers versus just sitting on the computer all day because I work from home currently as well too. So I would keep an eye, and I'm constantly having a reminder, hey, are you in class? Are you logged in on time? And I think she gets easily distracted when she's at home. So I think it just depends on the child and the family.
Interesting. Do you like the hybrid idea?
I do. I love hybrid.
Okay, that's cool. What about you? I know it's different for just. So my older son was special needs, so I understand. Hybrid would have been very tough for him. But my youngest son probably didn't even need to go to school. So,
right. Yes. My oldest did great with when we did e-learning in the spring.
Okay.
She did not like it just because she likes the social aspect of school, so she would not choose it. But she academically was fine. So if this experience has taught us anything, it's that the education is not a one-size-fits-all, and kids learn differently, and it's nice to be able to have the choice. And I think a lot of public schools, I know HSE this next coming school year is going to offer some kind of virtual option still. So it'll be interesting to see how public schools start offering different things to try to meet more needs.
So let's take it one step further. I'm older, right? I'm getting older now, and my sons are going to outlive me, right? I wonder what my grandchildren or great-grandchildren, what kind of education they'll experience. What kind of education do you think your great-grandchildren will experience as a result of the options you guys have been able to secure for your children? Do you think it'll be different? Do you think it carries on?
I hope so. I hope it'll be different. I hope it'll be something that fits their type of learning style, because all these kids don't learn exactly the same way. And I think that the problem with the public schools currently is that they teach everybody like they all learn the same way. And so hopefully in the future there will be different teaching styles to address the different learning needs.
And even different ideas about what we're teaching, right?
And absolutely, yes.
Because there's a lot of issues about that.
Yes.
How about you? What your great-grandchildren? What's different about their lives because your daughter's getting some choice?
they're having options, just plain and simple. They don't have to be stuck based on the zip code or the area that they live in, but they have the option to make wise choices about their education and would be able, just not only as students, but even be able to talk with their parents about it. Hey mom, I see this school that's gifted in music, or I see this school that is gifted in college prep, or whatever their path may be, and they actually have those options that are not tied down by their address.
How about you?
My husband and I were talking about it the other day, saying, what if school choice wasn't tied to income and the state just said every child gets X number of dollars and it's the parent's responsibility to figure out what
Go on, it goes on a card.
to do with that. And I mean, because there's plenty of people who would choose Fishers High School, but it has, 3,500 kids, and my daughter, even my high ability child, it's too big and it's too much. You have to be the upper echelon to play sports and to, be involved in some of those things, and it's just not an environment that, we would choose for her.
But your great-grandchildren, what will happen because you've chosen, do you think?
I hope that there are, she said, more choices available to them, and that every child gets to choose what is the best choice. And actually next year we're sending our oldest daughter to a different school than what we're at currently, because we need something else to meet her needs. So I'm going to have 2 schools and 2 schedules and 2 drop-offs and pickups to deal with. But I'm going to do it because it's what's best for my kids.
That's interesting. All right, let's have some fun with an experiment before we go. I put all the money of education on a credit card that you guys can use as parents any way you want to customize your child's education. Right? It's only about education. It can only be used for education. How do you spend that money? What do you do?
Well, I'm going to look for the best school that's going to fit my son's needs and address his interests as well as the needs. And that's where I'm going to spend that money.
Okay. How about, so like one of the things I'd say is, how about making sure that school, I'm only going to go to that school half time because I want to use the other money for trips.
No, that's not an option.
That's not an option.
Not an
Okay, you don't
option.
like that.
In fact, he has money now that he really wants to spend on something else. I said, well, what are you going to do when you need money for school? So that's what that's for.
So again, let's say, I want to send 4 hours of the day to the school, and then 4 hours a day, 2 hours a day online, and 2 hours a day at a museum, and those, or 2 hours a day online with a great master's class, right? So I get to learn economics from someone, or poetry from Maya Angelou. Right?
If it's educational, and he's going to benefit from it, then I think I could go along with that.
I think I would be very interested in extra opportunities for one-on-one tutoring for my 2 little kids.
Interesting.
Just because I work with them and they get extra pull-out during school and that kind of stuff, but just having somebody to work one-on-one with them is not necessarily something that I can afford to do outside of school, but it would be really helpful, especially like maybe in the summertime or something.
Yeah, totally get that. How about you?
I would tag on the same thing as the other ladies, making sure that they had the best education, and if there was some left over, to pour back into the schools that didn't have those options.
That's great. That's awesome.
And give that to them so that other children have that ability as well too.
So if you look at education, not your child's education in Indiana, right? What 2 adjectives describe it to you? What are the 2 words that say this is what education is in Indiana? Someone said in the previous one, complacent.
Absolutely.
What words would you use?
Lacking.
Lacking. What other words?
Complacent
Any
is
word.
good.
Any word.
Stagnant.
Stagnant.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else?
It's narrow.
Narrow.
I think it's narrow. I think that there are things that could be taught, and this has actually been in the news recently about how much to teach the kids, how much to expose them to. So,
Any thoughts from your side?
Can't think of anything off the top of my
Well,
head.
let's try the opposite of that. So 2 words to describe what it should and could look like 20 years from now.
inclusive.
Inclusive. Like that. Hopeful.
Hopeful.
Aspirational. What do you think?
Exemplary.
Exemplary. I like that. exemplary. So, it's interesting sort of what we're getting now versus what we think we want or don't want, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's always very interesting. So one of the last questions we always ask, we've been asking this, so we've had good conversations. Thank you for sharing your stories. I really appreciate it, and sharing your comments and thinking about education, right, in a different way, right? Because you don't often get a chance, I don't often get a chance to say, how would a parent really redesign education in America, right? Who's missing from this table? If you could have anyone in history, not necessarily with education, living or dead, who would it be at this table for you?
Wow.
Anyone. It could be anyone. Who would it be? Who should join us at this conversation?
The children.
Children.
That's what I was going to say too.
Educators.
Educators. The
Yeah.
children. That's interesting.
And I feel like maybe less administration and more teachers, because the teachers are the on the ground. A lot of times administrators, because I used to teach before my oldest was born, and they don't necessarily always know exactly, like in theory something sounds good, but it doesn't necessarily work when you're implementing it, with kids.
I love this because educators, parents, children, right? I mean, and other people are saying the Wright brothers, which is interesting, right? But I just think it's interesting how you guys say, hey, it just actually needs to be with the people who are getting most served by education or most exposed to it. So, look, I can't say thank you enough for coming and joining us. We really appreciate the conversation. So good to see you again, as always.
It's always good to see you, Robert.
And I hope you're staying around for dinner. But thank you again very, very much. Really good to be
you.
with you all.
Nice to meet
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.